Welcome back, everyone. In today's session, we are focusing on two essential principles of academic writing from our Unit 1 of the Reading and Writing modules. So formality and efficiency are the first two main principles of academic writing. So let's dive right in and explore how these core strategies can instantly sharpen your academic style. Starting off, academic writing in our first lesson is going to be divided into three main components. The first would be a clear definition of what academic writing is and the differences between it and other genres of writing. The second component would be the principle formality, and we will see how strategies could help us achieve formality in our writing, which is basically the most differentiating element in terms of the style of writing that is noticeable in academic writing and other forms of writing. The third component would be the principle of efficiency, which essentially is the economy of language. In other textbooks, you could find it defined as economy rather than efficiency. All right, so to define academic writing is simply a type of writing which is done by scholars for other scholars to read. It can take many forms such as journal articles, textbooks, dissertations, group project reports, essays, and etc. And while students are increasingly being asked to write different types of academic texts, you may notice in other modules like research methodology, you will be asked to write your RP. The essay remains the most popular type of assignment and assessment, and that is why the focus throughout the semester would be for the essay. But academic writing is related to different types of writing, like we have mentioned, the dissertations and so on. So the main difference between academic writing and other forms of writing would be the tone and perspective. Academic writing has an objective tone because when we say academic writing, we are speaking about research and we are speaking about scholarly discourse, so it is a scientific field, so it needs to be both objective and impersonal, so the perspective is impersonal. Whereas other forms of writing like creative writing, journalism, they can be highly personal or conversational. Another difference between academic writing and other forms of writing is that academic writing is evidence-based. And again, this goes into its scientific background because when we do research, we are going to make claims and we are going to make arguments, but these claims and arguments need to be backed by evidence, and that's what makes it evidence-based. The third let's say, difference between academic writing and other forms of writing, most forms of writing, is that academic writing has a standardized structure. If we take the example of the essay, for instance, it needs to have an introduction and a conclusion and develop in paragraphs. If we are speaking about dissertations, there is as well an introduction, a methodology chapter, and so on. So there is a standardized structure that is a code of conduct, essentially, in the scholarly world that needs to be followed by the students, teachers, and scholars in general. Usually it has a specialized language, and this depends on your field. If you are in a science field, the language needs to be scientific. If you are in an English major, the language could be related to literature and so on. It also prioritizes precision over aesthetics. Whereas if we look at, for instance, poetry, creative writing, it prioritizes rhythm and the aesthetic side of the language. Now let us look at some practical strategies to achieve this academic register in academic writing, or the formal register. On this slide I have provided, as you can see, 7 examples of how conversational text transforms into formal, efficient prose. We can group these into 3 core strategies or rules. First, we must eliminate conversational shortcuts. We have first here what we call contractions. Won't, didn't, doesn't, and didn't can be replaced with the full form will not, did not, does not, and didn't. And here what we call weak negative structures such as didn't yield any, doesn't have many, didn't allocate much funding can simply be replaced by positive formats of the verbs: yielded no results, has few variables, allocated little funding. Second, academic writing demands objective distance. As you can see in example 6, here the writer is addressing the reader, which is a major problem in academic writing. One should not be addressing the reader in academic writing or even asking questions in academic writing because it's not a conversational style. So instead, it can be shifted to passive voice, like saying the results can be seen in table 1. Here, this shifts the focus entirely onto the data rather than the writer or the reader who is getting addressed. Finally, we need lexical precision. Instead of using informal multi-word phrasal verbs like we have here coming up, we can substitute them with single formal verbs. As you can see in the example here, coming up can be replaced with this verb, offering, and this is more formal than the phrasal verb. Right, now we move into the second principle of academic writing, which is efficiency, which is also can be known as the economy of language. And what it essentially means is that efficient writing fulfills its purpose by using the minimum amount of language as possible, thus going straight into the point. And here we have 4 main strategies that we can see in these 4 examples. So first, we should aim for an efficient use of words. Like we see here, we have it may be difficult to make a decision about the method. This can be simply summarized into choosing the proper method may be difficult. And here we immediately sharpen the sentence and we avoid sentence clutter. In the second example, we have the second strategy, which is to avoid hedge overload. Now, hedging is really important in academic writing, which is related, as we will see later, to the principle of modesty, which means that we use hedging to express uncertainty. But here we have, it would seem that perhaps the results might suggest. Here we are expressing too much hedges, so we have a hedge overload. So this can simply be replaced by the results suggest. The verb suggest in itself has a less of a degree of certainty about it that can express this uncertainty rather than using it would seem, perhaps, results, might suggest, and so on. In the third example here, we have did not yield any result. This leads us to the third strategy, which is to prefer positive phrasing over negative constructions, because in English, expressing what is rather than what is not is inherently more concise. So we can see here the analysis yielded no new results. It's simply more concise, and we have avoided unnecessary auxiliary verbs. In example 4, we can focus on omitting needless words. Particularly, we see this with students. They use the overuse of the fact that, which can be simply omitted sometimes, and there is no need for it. So, for instance, owing to the fact that the sample was small, can be since the sample was small simply. And we have many examples of these that can be checked in our Moodle lesson, which has a detailed explanation of all of this. So this brings us to the end of our brief overview. Keep in mind that what we covered today is just a glimpse of our complete lesson. You'll find the full detailed explanations along with comprehensive handouts, practice exercises, and downloadable checklists waiting for you on Moodle. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing your writing progress in our course.